everybody. My name is Emmy Nitsuno. I'm a counselor in the TRIO program. It's a student support service program that assists students with financial and academic need to reach the goal of obtaining a certificate or associate's and then going on to transfer to a four-year university. Myself, I worked with Hermia Yam from counseling and Scott. We came together to look at the counseling department had just decided to roll out a new comprehensive intensive orientation for new incoming students. So we came together to figure out how we could assess the initial orientation and then figure out how we could further develop it so that it promotes the success of our new students and to look at what students really want and need from an orientation program.
So the current process is that the student, they apply to the college and then they attend the orientation and the assessment and then they come to see a counselor. What we did last time with this intensive orientation, it is a 4-hour long orientation. And we invited all the students who had completed the assessment and the brief orientation to come to this intensive orientation. And most of them are mainly high school students, but there were also some students who are returning students. And what we did was that the students will have will attend a full panel with student representatives who are talking about the multimedia program, the American Sign Language program, and share their experience. And they also share their experience on the global studies, some of the learning communities as well. And then after this student panel, then the students were given an introduction and a workshop on financial aid. Then they have a break, and then they come back, and the counselor will give them an educational plan to start them with the first semester so that they don't have to wait in line, for 3 or 4 hours just to see a counselor to clear a prerequisite or whatever. So that's what we did. And at the end, we asked them some questions.
So in looking at our findings, we looked at the Council for Advancement of Standards in Higher Learning. They've created a set of standards and guidelines for college orientation programs. So we looked at what we found out from our survey and compared it to those guidelines. Our group chose to look at this quote because it sort of summarizes what the CAS, or the Council of Advancement of Standards in Higher Learning, take into consideration in terms of their standards and guidelines for successful orientations. So they talked about how orientations must include facilitating the transition of new student into the institution, really promoting student learning outcomes that are purposeful and holistic and prepare students for satisfactory and productive lives. And preparing students for the institution's educational opportunities and student responsibilities, initiating the integration of new students into the intellectual, cultural, and social climate of the institution. So providing students really with time to become familiar with their new school and opportunities for new students to interact with other new students as well as continuing students, faculty, and staff. And also really supporting the support network of the student. So inviting the parents, partners, guardians, and children of this new student to also participate in orientation.
So from that intensive orientation, at the end we asked them 3 questions. The first question was, what are the top 3 things you learned today? And then the second question, what is still unclear? And the third question is, how could we improve future orientation? We find that these are the results. Most of the students, they focus on the topics on financial aid, and 23 of them out of 100 say it's very important, and 4 students said it is still unclear. And 16 students said the student education plan is important, and then 4 said unclear. It's interesting that most of the students, they did not comment on the student panel, even though we invited the students to share their experience in different programs. None of them, actually, I think none of them, right, responded and made comment on the student panel. And also some of the students said that sitting for 4 hours is very tough. Even though we give them a break, we feed them, we give them food, they still think it is tough.
Yeah, they're high school students, and so they wanted more activities and that kind of stuff. So what we found out, because what we did is counselors have things that they need to get done, right? They need students to know this information, and so it feels like they got to cram all this stuff in. But as we're kind of sitting and looking at the research that Emmy had found from that council, we were kind of thinking, like, what is it like to come into this school? If this is your first interaction, how do you feel? A lot of them were high school students, so they're 18, they're about to graduate. They don't know where they're at. I mean, I can imagine what I was like at 18, like just all over the place. And so we might want to think about, how do we address this transition for them? How do we make it something that is where they're actually walking in and they're feeling welcome? What kind of models are there out there? Are there online formats for doing orientations? There's different, Los Medanos and LA Trade Tech have really interesting orientations that we might want to look at. How do we address the big picture for students? Because sometimes, and even in my basic skills class, students walk in and you ask them, well, why are you here? And they're not really sure yet. So maybe at this orientation could be a place to ask that question. We want to help you figure out where you're going, because there's a hypothesis that if you can help students begin to ask that question early, that their motivation and their drive is going to be different as they get through the classes. So the orientation would be a good place to ask that, and that maybe it'd reduce some of the anxiety, or at least give them some kind of direction as they're going. And I think this fits in with a lot of the other stuff we're doing with the 1 unit foundations class. Yeah.
So in terms of thinking of what the next steps are, we thought it would be important during this next set of orientations, or as we roll out future ones, to include more student leadership and activities. So we thought of collaborating with the ASBCC to have more peer leaders involved in both the development and the facilitation of the orientations. We also thought it's important to address the developmental and emotional needs of students, above and beyond giving them concrete information. So really then looking again at those standards that the council created about creating learning objectives and outcomes that look at the developmental, emotional, and interpersonal needs of students. For example, assisting students with the transition into college and giving them that bigger picture of what college is, as well as adding more opportunities for student engagement, such as icebreakers, or like giving them more time to interact with their peers in smaller group activities. And also looking at figuring out what culture we're inviting students into to join us at BCC. So, who are we and why should they join us? So this could involve like facilitating a focus group or doing a survey of students and staff to define BCC's culture, and also during the orientation including a panel of student speakers that represent the diversity of BCC, so that they can present on their experiences to new students.
So future inquiries, or maybe things to do, would be to look at what other colleges do. Take the best practices from that study, because I think we were in the middle of doing it, and you look online and you're like, oh, someone actually has guidelines for what is the best thing to do, and you're like, okay, we need to use them. How to address special needs population, and then trying to figure out, well, how important is an orientation in the scheme of things? Maybe it's not that important, but maybe it is. Maybe there's an opportunity there that we're missing, and then how can we actually begin to measure the effect of that orientation down the road? Those are what we hope to do in the future, maybe in the Apple. Is that thing?
I think it got off to a great start. We were able to collaborate and come up with some great ideas, and so we're going to continue to work together as future orientations come up.
Just another comment, we are going to have another intensive orientation coming up next Friday, and if some of you have heard of the Student Success Task Force, actually the orientation is going to be a mandated intensive orientation district-wide for all 4 campuses beginning in the fall of 2013. So our model is kind of like we are running the pilot and we are kind of tweaking it and improving it to the point that it is beneficial to the students. And this is kind of trying to help out in the counseling department, because we really want to give the same message to the students at the same time, rather than in the one-on-one and kind of like they have to wait for so long to just get one thing done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense. Great.
Any questions?
Question, just curious, in the very first slide, it said that after they do assessment, they go to orientation. I was just curious, what would you think about, I mean, I don't even know if this is possible, but orientation before assessment?
they actually have a very brief orientation, and then they have the assessment, and this is the intensive one.
This is the intensive orientation that follows the assessment.
I don't know. When students come in for the brief orientation, their mind is focused on assessment.
Right.
So we did a focus group on giving the orientation before the assessment, and we find that students, they don't retain any of the information. So that's why we said, okay, we have a very brief orientation to give them all the gist of what needs to be known in the college. And then after the assessment, because now they want to get clear on the prerequisite, and they want to have an education plan. So all this information will come in place after the assessment. Because if we have the orientation first, and then they have the assessment, then they have to come back to see us to
Right.
develop the education plan. So we are trying to see how we can do our work more efficiently. If they finish on their assessment and orientation, a very brief one, so they already have some idea on what college is like, and they may, hopefully they have some questions. So when we have this intensive orientation, we're hoping that they can ask us questions. And Scott and I have talked about, a lot of times students, they don't know what they don't know, and it is our responsibility to ask them questions and prompt them. And if we think that they may not know a certain thing, we are going to tell them more. So the 4 hours is intensive, and it is really tough for them to sit there. And we are trying to see if we can have some activities that can get them more engaging, so that they can retain the information, because the lecture type won't work.
Sabrina and then Gabe.
Okay, quick suggestion, to get more, if you're gonna survey them again, maybe to get more people to participate in the survey, offer some kind of a prize or something?
We did.
You did, okay.
We gave them a flash drive,
A what?
a flash
Oh,
drive.
flash drive? Okay.
Wow.
We
That's
did.
pretty good, that's pretty good.
You had
Good prize.
100 all at once?
Yes.
Okay.
I have some questions, but I don't want to take up a lot of time now, because now we don't have a lot of time. Who would we talk to?
We have more time because the last group seems like they are not showing up, so now it's just you.
Oh,
They just, they
Okay,
just
I
were
have-
interested in talking
I
about
can
reading.
have another 10 minutes.
Oh, well, I have one of the things I have questions about is that you said that there was some information about multimedia art and ASL.
We invited student panel to talk about and share their experience. So we have representatives on the multimedia art, the American Sign Language, the global studies, and public and human services.
Right, the learning communities.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm also interested in knowing how students get information about all the different possible majors and programs at the colleges. Is that something that happens?
We have, so we learned from the last one. So in the next one, we have included all the majors and the CTE programs, and we give them a handout on all the degrees and the certificates that's offered at Berkeley City College, as well as in the other Peralta sister
Because
campuses.
one of the things I was thinking about is if you wanted to have a variety of activities, we piloted this thing where you have tables and representatives from different programs at the college. But that seems like the kind of thing where you might have representatives, not just from CTE programs, but not just CTE programs, from different departments as well. And I know that when you go to the orientation at UC Berkeley, for example, one of the things people really look forward to is being able to go to these little presentations of the different majors, you know, just find out a little bit more about those different things.
We actually,
I was thinking about something where you have
Yeah.
people available and people can go around and talk to them, and
Right.
that's a chance to move
we
around.
actually.
Can I answer that?
That's a really good idea.
The goal was to marry the two. Like that day that we had downstairs, and then when there's the different programs
That would be
and
good.
the
Yeah.
orientation,
The career
Yeah.
pathway.
it just
Didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then you know that we often want.
I know, it's
candidates
just a
not
lot to
talking,
do, but I mean, it might be nice, it might be a nice thing to do in the middle, so that there's, or at some point where it feels like people need to get up and walk around.
Actually, that was in the planning, you know,
Yeah.
with the tables in the atrium.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have to move to earlier date, and that
Maybe-
doesn't happen, you know. So yes, we thought about that, you know, have the tables outside in the atrium, and whether a student or a faculty can sit at the table to answer questions, you know, for
Yeah.
the students.
That would
That
be
was in the planning.
Yeah,
That
maybe
was in
next,
the
maybe
planning.
next time.
Yeah.
I have no idea if this is practical at all, and we did a little pilot and it had pluses and minuses, but I'm wondering if it's some part of this idea might be adapted. We had about 70 ESL students come over from the high school one day, and we had them run through a computer lab, sitting two to a computer and having a little like 5-thing treasure hunt that you have to
Yep.
find on the
I was
BCC
gonna recommend the
website.
same
And
thing.
so
Yeah.
just the fact of them, and we got this idea from the high school homeschool liaison who was saying that, you know, one of the things that really intimidates incoming students is the fact that they're gonna have to do a lot of homework on computers and stuff. And so just the fact of them walking to this cool lab at the college, sitting down, logging in as a student and opening up our website and finding something on it was very empowering for them, and they really got excited about it, and it was a chance, just like one more step of movement. But I don't know if that's something that would fit or be logically possible, I mean, logistically possible or not, but it was a fun little part of their.
It depends on the size, and
Totally.
if we have enough computers around,
Yeah.
definitely we can do that.
Oh, right. 'cause
And
you
then
have
if there are
100
classes
students.
in them and when it happens and
Oh, it's
stuff. So
split
I don't know
up.
if that's possible, but if it was split up and like some of them got to do that or something.
You have 313 and 312 that are having to tutor a computer.
And also it is in the middle of the semester, so
Yeah.
the classrooms might be.
Exactly, yeah, it might be
Have
difficult.
on the
to
side.
set.
So if it is all in the summertime, you know,
Yeah.
so the timing is also
Yeah.
something that we have to take into
Right.
consideration.
But, yeah.
So it is, you know, a lot of factors.
This is alpha testing, but I mean, it's the first one we did, so I know, we
Yeah.
know there are a lot of tweaks that can be done, and I think the more people know about it, the more stuff we can kind of pack into, the day can get even bigger,
Yeah.
and we can throw more
You
resources.
can see that we're buying into it.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
absolutely.
You can see that this actually evolved from the previous presentation we
Right,
had for
right.
the group counseling.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, maybe we do the orientation first. And the district, all of a sudden, they are saying that they are going to implement this kind of intensive orientation in fall 2013.
Right.
And they are talking about it, whereas we are working on it. You know, we tried the first one, and we're going to try the next one next week. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you.